Welcome, Mr. Jim Lochead. It's an honor and pleasure to be speaking with you today. I see you have been traveling over last 11 years helping people on 6 continents, and your words speak of peace, Mother Earth, and building a future for the children. Maestro, tell us about your journey in behalf of Mother Earth. Mr. Lockheed, kindly tell us about your personal and professional journey, and how did you become an advocate of Mother Earth?
Alam, salam alaikum.
Thank you.
Hello, bonjour. I love everybody. I was able to retire in 2010. And at that point, I took off for Italy. And since then, I've been traveling on 6 continents with a minimum amount of money and helping people. And of course, and I talk about this about my work in Africa, and that is, if you help the mothers, you're helping the children. And so, I've spent these last 11 years using my professional talent of a master carpenter and project manager, bringing my own tools and helping people on 6 continents. Go ahead. Ask more of the question.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
So
have you answered it, or I should move forward for the next question? If you have answered it, then we can move forward for next question.
but in my journey,
Hmm.
I've gone from Italy to Spain to Philippines to Costa Rica to Fiji. In Fiji, I slept on the floor for the last 2 months at the age of 70, 71, um, and all over the United States also, helping my friends in the United States whenever anybody asks. So it's been pretty interesting.
So, sir, let's move on. This question is probably redundant, not needed, and will get answered along the way. But I would ask, was it easy to be traveler and a man from nowhere? Tell us about the challenges you faced in this journey.
It is not easy to travel like it was before 2001. And it really, travel days can be painful. And at times, you're not always welcomed at every border, and this becomes a problem. But mostly it has to do with being able to live in each situation. There's no photos of me at the Marriott Hotel in Manila. There's no photos of me at the Howard Johnson's in Costa Rica. I've always been on the ground. I've always made my own way, and I've always got help from the people in every country, and there's good stories in that.
Once you have told me about the UK, I think you should repeat that the story. People must be they will be interested to know about it. What have you faced in UK while you applied for there?
I've kind of have the Guinness Books of World Records for a person of peace who travels only to help people and has a good resume. And I've been refused entry into the United Kingdom 3 times now, and each time is an amazing story that they write, because it has nothing to do with the truth. But that's another book. But and also one time in Ireland, and that that's very frustrating. And I know people around the world have had this problem, and they seem to have a character, pretty similar, in that they're doing this to help people, that they're, trying to, spread good information and encourage people and bring hope to the children. And these are the people that are getting stopped. But we know the stories in history. We know, whatever the legend of the West, Jesus was this really great guy, but it didn't end up very well. I stay ahead of the crucifixions.
Maybe you raise difficult questions to them.
Well, obviously, if you're with good people, they appreciate goodness.
Exactly.
If you're with bad people, goodness is a threat to them, is an opposition to them, and we know what's going on in the world. We know that that a lot of governments just don't seem to be able to know what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is like,
Ah.
excuse me,
So, Mr. Jim, you mentioned peace, the preservation of Mother Earth, and building a future for the children. Tell us about your journey in being such a passionate advocate for the children. You look
Well,
like an absolute lover and promoter of the children. Why you pay such attention to children, and why it's important?
see, it's not. This is we talked a little about this. It's not that I have attention to children. I have attention to the things that matter: peace, the preservation of Mother Earth, and building a future for the children. But wherever I am, and a lot of times there aren't any children around, but wherever I am, I give positive attention to the children. I help the children. I help the children economically so they eat better. And in Uganda, I baked cakes and cookies for the kids, and I built the first furniture they ever had, plus fixing a lot of other things up in the house. So I keep busy, and for me, it's all about the work. A lot of people talk. Some people go to college and they're a professor and they're in college for 50 years, and all they have is words and talk. They don't have deeds. We have to match our words with our deeds.
Exactly. So let's move on for the next question. I don't see many world leaders and others talking about the children, and yet, for you, this is a major theme. Why do you think these nationally recognized people are not giving as high priority for the children of the world as they must should have to?
I think the one of the big and simplest ways to put it here is that children are not profitable in the West. They're not looked at as profitable. And yet there are areas of the East that understand this. And that's where, I post a meme of something that Confucius said. And we all know a little bit about Confucius. We don't know much, but Confucius said, if you're going to plan for 1 year, plant rice. If you're going to plant for 10 years, plant trees. If you're going to plant for 100 years, educate your children. Oof. Those words still ring well today.
Exactly.
The world leaders, it's about profit. That's why old people don't have any value. Me and a small group of really good people around the world understand the value of all people if they're allowed to be encouraged, if they're given opportunity. A nation can increase their value 100%. They can double their value if they start including the women, if they start including the elders. The elders should have a great place in the society, in this modern society. It should be a wonder.
Exactly. But unfortunately, they don't pay such attention. on these
No,
issues?
it's not. They know, and they love their kids and everything, but the collection of people in each country, the citizens, the children aren't working. They're not making profit. Okay. And if you're not making profit, you're not going to get much attention from them. Okay.
Exactly. It's all about the profit.
It's all about the profit. It's all about that's what guides them. You can have 10 million children starving and they'll talk about the stockbrokers. I mean, seriously.
Exactly.
I mean, is garbage garbage, or are we so propagandized and so hypnotized by the media that we can't even think anymore outside the box? We're on a razor's edge of allowable knowledge, and now it's even getting crazier. It's real crazy now. The
Yeah.
censorship.
So tell us a bit about your work helping the children of Uganda, the USA, Fiji, and other places you have been visiting.
I haven't gone to school to become a humanitarian. It's something that we all have inside of us. And as early as 1970, I was helping coach children in baseball while at a U.S. Air Force base in Germany. And then later on, I coached youth sports for over 20 years, even being the president at times, putting in tons and tons of hours. I missed a lot of TV. Big deal. But I, coach these kids. When I coached, I'm not sure why, I never talked about winning. These were
Exactly.
kids from 4 years to 15. They didn't need a good coach as much as they needed somebody to encourage them in a positive way. And from that aspect, I was always a really good coach, and parents would pull me aside and say, wow, you're so patient. And some people know me,
Yeah.
they don't think I'm very patient. But I would also bring the smaller children up front. I never favored the star. I never had a star. I always had 13 or 15 stars, all the kids.
And with
And
limited resources.
huh?
And with limited resources, I think you have been doing all these things with limited resources,
Yeah,
without uh, without funding. Normally, people do with.
yeah. And so then after that, when I retired in 2010, I took off for Europe. Wherever I went, I always did the best for everybody. And because I did the best for everybody, it aided the children. If they weren't eating that well, I fed them better. If they didn't have furniture, I built them furniture. And so it kind of became natural to me. And along with that, of course, is my dedication and my passion for Mother Earth, for our planet. Should we not care? Again, do you
Yes.
just tell everybody to shut up? We have to ask the stockholders first? No, that's not what it's about.
So, sir, tell me about. You are an adamant promoter of peace and absolutely against imperialism. How has imperialism impacted the children of the world specifically, and other spheres of our life?
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to the same thing. In South America, the children aren't being cared for. Sure, sure, sure. If you're from one of the wealthier families, if you're in the upper middle class, but it's not a society that it can never benefit everybody, and it has drastic negatives for the people that are ruling these societies and feel so obligated that they have to have people at the bottom, and they have to constantly have people unemployed and not care for the old people and stuff. And so this is a philosophy that has really become, you know, mutated into something that it wasn't supposed to be. And what's happened in the West, and you know this, is that they have interchanged two words. Okay, they've interchanged democracy with capitalism, and what exists in the West of democracy, you know, would not get a passing grade from any honest scholar. The voting systems are all compromised. The voting systems are all heavy with lawyers and the children of the rich in too many countries. And it's not that somebody from this group is going to become the leader. You know, the leaders of the country are usually, kind of a higher level, upper middle class background who can go to colleges, because there is education needed in this. And this education to be a leader of a country, it's not easy to find on the ground. And so, so some of us who are really mature in this development understand that, yeah, there's going to be somebody who has had advantages that is going to be the leader. Okay. It's not going to be, it's not going to be the smallest person from the smallest village. It's going to be somebody but within this, sometimes good things happen. We know about Abraham Lincoln. We know about Sun Yat-sen. We know, we know about Ho Chi Minh. There have been really good leaders, and
Exactly.
there still are some really excellent leaders in the world. And this probably isn't the venue to talk about it now, because we want people to warm up to the healing of the planet.
Yeah. I see you. You are from USA. How do you reconcile American history since uh, World War II, and how do the American people see this era of the history?
This is, I've been here in this period, almost from the beginning, 1948. And I've watched carefully, and I'm a good history student, and I've always been participating, and I'm independent. I've never been enraptured by the public media dialogue. I've always been able to remain independent of it. And this is a lot. And then I've been traveling on 6 continents. I have a resume that it's pretty singular. And because of it isn't that, like, you can get your learning from books, and you go to college, and in 6 years you get a PhD, and the rest of your life you do monologues in front of students, and you write a book now and then to get some kudos or whatever. But it's not the same as being on the ground. So you learn things on the ground that cannot be learned in school. And these things are, as I've learned, and as a lot of people know, these are the most valuable things. I've designed and drafted houses. I'm an architect. I engineered the houses. I did all the purchasing. I did all the estimating. I did all the drawing. There are a lot of like architects in the world, and a lot of spectacular architects in the world, but very few of them have spent 50 years, using a hammer and putting things together in so many different ways, and on so many different continents. So it creates a wisdom that it has great value.
Exactly. You are not a politician, or I can't say that you are a political scholar, but still, I will ask you this question. Western civilization is developed on the bones of previous colonies of Asia, Africa, and Native Americans and Native Australians. Is it possible to pay back for such political crimes of the past?
This is a question that is really a big question for today, because can the children of the planet acquire justice in this? Just from the children. Can Mother Earth see justice in this? Okay. So what we have here, and I don't want to get too much into this, but in 1441, the Portuguese, traveled to Africa and kidnapped a group of Africans into slavery. Okay, this is the start. This is the start of European imperialism. Okay, not 1492. It was 50 years of stealing to practice. So in 1441, this was approved by the aristocracy and the Vatican. The games had begun. This period I saw mentioned in 3 articles. They mentioned the word aberration. So this period from 1441 to today, I call the Great Aberration. The Great Aberration is where you have a ruling class that has an agenda and that meets occasionally and has their parties, and some of the guys step out into a separate room and they talk about the direction things should be going in. And so they said, hey, stealing and killing people is okay, And so this has been going on. But this period is ending. The Great Aberration is ending. This method is not working anymore. I mean, not just, their whole method, but the old rules, the corruption within every democracy and how they've damaged every good idea is led them up to today. They don't have the tools now to deal with a modern world. So, of course, they're in great conflict. And then, of course, all they can think about is fighting China. Well, if you're thinking about fighting China, you're the biggest fool in history, because you know nothing, And I know that Pakistan and China are good friends, and I encourage that.
I think you have been telling me about the story of China, that even at that time they were really developed in many technologies, specifically in sea travel and these all things. Can you tell us about those times, that how Chinese were in those times?
I not being somebody that is influenced by the media, I have a 50-year friendship with China. And I had a period in the early 70s where I got to learn a lot about China. Now, in this, I have no political affiliation. I never read Marx. I never read Lenin. Some of the Lenin stuff, they have names of the Russians, and you get lost in the names. But anyway, so I never, but I did learn about China, and I have a great reverence for Mao Zedong. And I read a lot of Mao, and a lot of it's just poetry and stuff. This is a man that he's thinking, and he's thinking about the people all the time. He's never thinking about some kind of personal gain. There's nothing about personal gain in any of his writings. And so anyway, I knew about and had seen the movie The Red Flag Canal, and I was impressed. All these people working with hand tools, creating a miracle. And then only recently I realized that was 1969. Very little mechanical equipment. Anyway, China has been very flexible, but they've been on a pretty smart path for their whole existence. And there's some, and they know they've made mistakes. They criticize themselves about their mistakes more than anybody. And so we come to today, and I start restudying China, and I start seeing a country where there's 40,000 kilometers of high speed rail. There are 285 eco sustainable planned cities from scratch being built with all the most incredible infrastructure that didn't even appear in any science fiction books. And then they do a poll. The UN does a poll to see how each nation's people feel about their government. And China gets a 95.5 rating from their citizens. 95.5% of the people are like, hey, I'm real happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. In the
because
US,
it's because of their vibrant and active administration.
well, if you know, people in the West only know what they've heard. Okay, that in Xinjiang, there's slave labor, and they're putting people. You know, this is a Western dialogue. Okay, it has nothing to do with reality. Okay, China, for the people that know, and I'm talking about the rich people around the world, the owners of the 200 biggest global brands, they know that China did a fabulous job in Xinjiang because they took control of the situation right away. And they kind of, and with that, you know, and by helping people, they did a little more than they needed to do. There's probably a little too many cameras around, you
Yeah.
know, but maybe only as much as New York. So they, you know, this dialogue from the West should be dismissed. Okay, so so China has, you know, written into their constitution ecological sustainability into their constitution. China has planted a forest in Tibet that is the size of France. China has two new modern just built bridges over a river in Weifang and in Tianjin, and they've had included in the engineering a giant Ferris wheel because it becomes a symbol of the city, and it's something for the people to enjoy. Well, if you're a country that's building Ferris wheels into a bridge, that's called whimsy in architecture. No totalitarian country is involved with whimsy in architecture just for the benefit of the people, just to have fun. Pretty amazing.
Yes, but I would like to put out one thing. Maybe Chinese are well and better in their own territory, in their own limits of their own country, but internationally, on the front of foreign policy, they have been supporting totalitarian systems of governments like in Myanmar or like Iran or in Saudi Arabia. They have been supporting, and I think they don't have any problem if there is democracy anywhere, or if there is like authoritarian or totalitarian type of government.
Very good question. Because let me just start with the last part, and you might have to remind me a little bit. China takes a policy, a national policy, not to interfere in other people's governments. Okay? China helps everybody. China has contracts with 150 countries in the Belt and Road Initiative. China is building megastructure in 138 countries in the Belt and Road Initiative. China works just as well with Museveni in Uganda, okay? Not considered to be like an Abraham Lincoln type or a Mao Zedong, more considered to be like an Attila the Hun or a Genghis Khan. Anyway, so China is not importing its economic and political philosophies around the world. Wow, pretty nice. The US demands total submission if they're going to help you, like they helped Libya, like they helped Somalia, like they helped Syria, like they helped Vietnam, like they helped
even like they helped Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Well, I this is Pakistan has been playing the game with the West, and and shame on Pakistan, but it's not so complete in Pakistan. It's not complete enough where the whoever they are from the USA, is.
But we have been, sir, we have been affected of that game.
Yeah,
we have been affected. You can see our society, what we are facing right now, and what is condition of our economy. These all things are happening around us because of that international policy, war on terror.
Right. They are punishing, not helping, punishing all these different nations. And in Pakistan, it's not a secret that, X amount of the percentage of the Pakistani business ruling class, corporate class, has their wealth tied in with the Americans. And in this, these people that have put another country before their own country, there's a word for such people. And history is not going to look fondly upon these people. And this is what we can do as just citizens, to not give support to those people who are not honoring the sovereignty, like Pakistan allowing the US to drone bomb a wedding. Okay, let's evaluate how big of a crime that is. Okay, that's pretty big.
Exactly. Is it anything like big superpower or good? Is it anything like a bad superpower or good superpower in the world, or this term is wrong? If we say about this thing,
in this word superpower, okay, I know because of studying and everything else that this word is a Western word. Okay, this word only refers to the USA, to the imperial West, Britain, France, Italy less and less, Spain a little, Australia. This term only applies to that. This term is not used in the West. China couldn't give a fiddle fuck about being a superpower. It doesn't mention the word. It doesn't care about the word. China is not competing with the USA. Sorry, USA. China is not competing with you. 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail to zero is not a competition. China is being China. China has developed slowly over first, but once 2000 hit, China has, in just the 2000s, built more than the Egyptian, the Roman, and the British empires combined in just 20 years. I mean, this is just the truth. I mean, this is the UN gives China awards on this stuff. They know.
Yeah, they are building and building all the way where we see.
They love to build. If somebody comes to your country and says, "Hey, how'd you like a new railroad?" Well, we don't have any money. Well, let's work something out. Okay, and we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. What happens if we can't pay? We'll make a new contract and we'll make it so we can work it out. But what happens in these situations, as these people are learning in Tanzania and Zambia with the railroad, the Chinese finished in 1974, a year ahead of schedule. They they look back and say, wow, we're doing economically so much better because we have some modern things like a mega hydroelectric dam, or in Malawi. China has a good relation with Malawi, and it goes back about 12 years now, which is a long time in Chinese stuff because they move fast, and they built for free. China built for free in Malawi the new government building. So it's a nice modern government building. It's not as fancy as the railroad stations in China, but it's a very respectable building, and China did it for them for free, which is pretty nice.
Yes. So tell me about one thing else, sir. Global hunger can be ended by spending $265 billion per year. Then why countries are spending almost $2 trillion per year on military instead of ending global hunger?
When the U.S. went to China and Henry Kissinger in secret missions in 1971 to set up for Nixon's visit, and Nixon was in heaven. That's the best time Nixon ever had in his life, was when he was in China. And what they did was they brokered all of America's major light industry to China so that America could just become a giant munitions plant. Well, this wasn't a good idea. And the more they became a giant munitions plant, the more everything they did had to do with war. But not even that. And this is something that, what's her name, Roy, the Indian writer, she said they used to make weapons to fight wars. She says now they make wars to make weapons because it's all about profit. They don't care. It isn't even that they got caught up. They were making more money, and this is what they did to make money, and then they just kept doing it. And so
Like this business of wars.
And they've lost track of what the point of government is, or what the point of family is, or what the point of tribe is, and they forgot the people. So for the little money, and this is not how to do it, for the little money it would take to feed the children of the world, they're spending 10 times more to create wars that, like in Iraq. And they asked Madeleine Albright, do you think killing 500,000 people was worth it? And she's like basically saying like, well, we got stockholders, and so they don't care. And so,
and still they are doing same thing.
What's that?
I said still they are doing same thing.
Right. But it's once you establish a certain game, okay, that game is in motion. Okay, America cannot turn the off switch. There's no off switch. And so America is traveling backwards downhill with no brakes right now. Okay, China is rocketing. Okay, figuratively and literally, just putting a piece of the space station into orbit, are rocketing forward at a pace that no civilization in history has even come close to. In another 13 years, they're going to have 80,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. They're going to do it. They put a schedule on themselves, and they try to beat the schedule, and they almost always meet the schedule. They're pretty good.
They represent like 5 years development plan.
Right. It's like, what's America's 5-year plan? And they look at you like, what? We don't know. And China reviews it. And when they review the 5-year plan and they go in the next, when they have the 2 sessions, this year's 2 sessions in 2021, I know nobody's read it, but if you read what the Chinese have have challenged themselves, not competing with the USA. China really loves China. How they've
But sir,
challenged it.
unfortunately, sorry, I'm interrupting, but unfortunately, taxpayers of USA are the part of this game unconsciously.
But it's not unconsciously. It's only done that way that the people understand it subconsciously, and it affects how they act consciously. The people who are in control, the people who are in control since World War II, they had already written these plans up before World War II. And during World War II is when they did their dirtiest work. Okay. And, and if people know anything about the
And they
Rockefeller,
build their economy, sir. They build their economy on the bones of Europeans and Russians by selling weapons and all the material was required in the war.
right. These people who are, everybody's hope for peace are the ones building the weapons and selling them around the world. Hillary Clinton, okay, is the greatest salesperson in all of history. You know why?
Why?
Because this is about what the Secretary of State is for the first 4 years. She brokered a deal or deals to sell weapons around the world for a total of $165 billion. Okay? Can you guess what her broker's fee? No? In other words, if you sell a house, you have a broker's fee. You sell 165 billion in weapons for Lockheed Martin, for Boeing, for Raytheon, for General Dynamic. You're appreciated.
Exactly. Sir, let's move on. I'm going to ask you one more question. Global pandemic, I mean, COVID-19 has severely affected human lives around the globe. What do you think? What are basic impacts of this pandemic and what is changed after the global pandemic?
Okay. I've done some very intensive research. I've seen all the stuff in the media, and then I went hunting all around for different information. And so I like to talk about the timeline. And for me, the timeline goes back over 100 years to the 1918 flu. And the 1918 flu, after 100 years of research, every honest scientist that has studied it has traced it back to the Army vaccination clinic at Camp Funston, Fort Riley, Kansas, USA. Okay?
Exactly.
So then now we come up to today, okay? And in 1969, the UN produced a screenplay, because I'm talking the truth. And that was International Health Regulations, 1969, about if there was a pandemic like the Black Plague, how could they deal with it? And let's figure out a game plan. Okay. So then all of a sudden, we have flu seasons, and some are pretty big, and you can almost guess that, if you thought it was completely natural, you were wrong, that it wasn't completely natural. So then in 2003, a TV production on the Dead Zone called The Plague has an episode. And in this episode, coincidentally, is all of the dialogue from the 2020 pandemic. Coincidentally. Okay. In 2005, the UN passes a monumental game screenplay, IHR 2005. And in this is that through the UN, from the UN, through the World Health Organization, there is going to be a live exercise wrapped around a pandemic, and it's quite clear from what they say that it's going to be from a respiratory pathogen. Okay, there's a reason why our lungs are bad, but I don't want to get into that. But we will talk about that. And so they create the playbook, and in 2007, 194 nations sign on because all the words are good. I mean, and these are, these are the academics. These are the children of the most privileged in every country. And so in 2010, they hold an exercise. Of course, it doesn't get any play. You have to be a good detective. In early October 2019, they have an affair called Event 201, in which all of these people, and you have all of the main players. You have Johns Hopkins University, you have the vaccine people, you have the good-hearted people that believe that this is what's needed because that's what they've learned. And in this Event 201, they mention certain words a lot. And one of the words they mention a lot is vaccines, 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 vaccines. Well, all of a sudden we have the Wuhan World Military Games, in which 10,000 athletes participate from 130 countries. Because I am who I am, because I've been in the military, because I've lived so many years and learned on 6 continents, when military people travel, they are first given booster shots. They're given vaccines. Everybody knows, that when 1,000 people are given a vaccine, or 10,000, that some of those people are going to have a reaction to the vaccine. This is guaranteed 100%, always happens.
It happens.
And then those people will become symptomatic, okay? And if they're symptomatic, okay, and it's the first day and they're not feeling so bad, but they're a wrestler and they're wrestling, the chance that that person they're wrestling with is going to get that pathogen. In IHR 2005, it says that they're going to hold, and these are not my words, this is pretty much verbatim, they're going to hold at least 2 exercises with one releasing a lethal respiratory pathogen, with one releasing a lethal respiratory pathogen.
So how they played it out? States don't know about this.
How did it get played out? In the rule book.
How they have played it out. It's
how
not
they
like.
Yeah, and we're seeing. But in IHR 2005, which nobody's read, and none of my activist friends even, it's like the biggest clue. It's the elephant in the room, and none of them can see it. That there's kind of an incentive program in this from, I don't know, the World Bank or whatever, in which the countries that produce the best numbers are going to get the biggest loans to build infrastructure. Almost nobody knows this, and the people, especially in the American government, that first got involved in IHR 1969, and for those from IHR 2005, they're no longer in government. There's no continuity in the USA government. Meanwhile, in China has people that have been in their government for over 40 years now. A lot. I mean, maybe 20 million members of the government in China have been involved close to 40 years. So they have continuity. So when Alaska happened and China sent two superstar government officials with both over 40 years experience against this Blinken character who has less than a month of experience and knows, and he's from the West. The people from the West, I don't care who they are, they don't understand China. I'm not even going to say that I understand China, but compared to everybody in the American government, I am a wizard compared to them because they don't understand.
Okay, sir. So let's move on for next question. I would like to ask about Pakistan. Pakistan is troubled country because of its economic and political challenges. How change is possible here, as per your perspective?
Pakistan, although a lot of people don't know, is an incredibly beautiful country with incredibly wonderful people and very well educated and great natural resources. Pakistan's kind of lucky because some countries have advanced in some ways for X amount of years, but they're going backwards. China has advanced for 70 years, but they're going forward. Pakistan is not going backwards and they're not going forwards, but it's the opportunity that presents itself. And the opportunity is kind of like the Chinese say, it's not communism, it's not capitalism. And maybe we got to find a name for it. But what it is it's but for Pakistan, have the Pakistani people been merchants for 4,000 or 5,000 years? Yes. So this part of course is easy, but then some of the other stuff is filtering out the old.
And sir, we have inherited Indus Valley civilization.
You've definitely inherited it for sure, and it's a big struggle ahead, but it's not a revolution. It's a half revolution.
But sir, unfortunately, internally here in Pakistan, some people or like a class of people doesn't like to recognize that inheritance or Indus Valley civilizations, because we have been in trouble of identity issue here in Pakistan.
Right, but can't you see the opportunity in that? Because as people learn, okay, they're going to start realizing their own national positive pride, not negative patriotism, but positive patriotism. Okay, so the Pakistanis have a great opportunity, and part of the reason, of course, is
to learn from the mistakes.
Their relationship with China.
Exactly. And so China doesn't ignore its past or its mistakes, but we always do.
Well, China has a long past, but when you talk about a long past, Pakistan has a long past. The U.S. is 270 years, and has the most McDonald's. But China is from a philosophy, okay, before Marxism and especially during Marxism, that self-criticism is evident in everything they do. So every time they make a mistake, they can correct it. They don't make a mistake like like the U.S. has made, like the West has made, doing the same thing over and over because of the stockholders. China doesn't have that burden. China didn't China wasn't watching TV in the 1950s. China's been busy working, and China says it, and she says it, and I say it, and that is, it's all about the work. And in this, China, the Chinese people have a great work ethic, and because of that, their their economy has doubled every 7 years during this century. And in other words, the Chinese are making that much more money.
So, sir, thank you. And I have to ask last question of this conversation. I don't think it's a question, but what is your message to people regarding Mother Nature and the Earth?
You know, I've been able, but anyway, when I did the speech that I did at La Place de la République on the pedestal of Mother Liberty in Paris, when I arrived here over a year ago, it was for the children of Kashmir. And it was that it is universal, natural, and sacred. All children have the right to live in peace with food, shelter, clothing, education, and health care. No law of man can deny this. Every tribe took care of everybody. In good tribes, the work of many supported all. We've been tackled by the great aberration. People are not greedy. People are not warlike. People are not like the West leaders who, push this bullshit on everybody. So there's great hope for the future. Because there are some things in motion moving forward so quickly now, this really bodes well for Mother Earth and the future of the children. Things are speeding up so much. If you live in a country that is moving at 50 miles per hour, and then you have another country that's moving at, like a maglev train in Shanghai at 450 kilometers per hour. You're speeding up history. This is what's happening. Other countries are, they can't keep up. Well, the West can't keep up. There's no way, So there's hope, there's real hope. And I hope Pakistan has a Pakistan revolution. I hope it's positive. I hope not even somebody gets a paper cut. Okay? And it's not a revolution. It's the half revolution. It's 180 degrees away from war. Okay? 180 degrees away from war is peace. It's not a revolution.
Violence.
We don't want to go back. We want to go halfway and be the furthest distance from the negatives, from the evil, from the selfishness.
Exactly. So thank you very much for your time. It was a great experience to talk with you. And it was our first conversation, and we will be discussing many more issues. And I will be asking you many more times in future for more discussions on various topics. So thank you very much. I would like to say thanks that you managed to give us time for this wonderful conversation and your thoughtful ideas. And I think it will help us and our viewers to understand things with your perspective, because you have been a traveler and you have an experience. So your experiences and your perspective will help us to broaden our thinking and our ideas regarding many things.
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you for the
Yes, sir.
opportunity, and a big hug to all the
Thank you,
people
sir.
in Pakistan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.